wheat. He spread a sack on the floor and thereon set a hand mill. He took some quantity of wheat in a winnowing fan, then drawing up the sleeves of his kafni robe and taking hold of the peg of the hand mill, started grinding the wheat by putting a few handfuls of wheat in the upper opening of the mill and rotated it. I thought what business Baba had with the grinding of wheat when he possessed nothing and stored nothing, and as he lived on alms. Some people who had come there thought likewise, but none had the courage to ask Baba what he was doing. Immediately, the news of Baba's grinding wheat spread into the village, and at once men and women ran to the masjid and flocked there to see Baba's act. 4 bold women from the crowd forced their way up and pushed Baba aside, took forcibly the peg or handle into their hands, and singing Baba's Leela started grinding. At first, Baba was enraged, but on seeing the women's love and devotion, he was much pleased and began to smile. While they were grinding, they began to think that Baba had no house, no property, no children, none to look after, and he lived on alms, and therefore he did not require any wheat flour for making bread or roti. What will he do with this big quantity of flour? Perhaps as Baba is very kind, he will distribute the flour amongst us. Thinking in this way, and while singing, they finished the grinding, and after putting the hand mill aside, they divided the flour into 4 portions and began to remove them one per head. Baba, who was calm and quiet up till now, got wild and started abusing them, saying, "Ladies, are you gone mad? Whose father's property are you looting away? Have I borrowed any wheat from you so that you can safely take the flour? Now please do this. Take the flour and throw it on the village border limits." On hearing this, the women felt abashed and whispering amongst themselves went away to the outskirts of the village and spread the flour as directed by Baba. I asked the Shudi people, why was this that Baba did? What was this that Baba did? They replied that as the cholera epidemic was spreading in the village, and this was Baba's remedy against the same. It was not wheat that was ground, but cholera itself was ground to pieces and pushed out of the village. From this time onward, the cholera epidemic subsided, and the people of the village were happy. I was much pleased to know all of this, but at the same time, my curiosity was all aroused. I began to ask myself, what earthly connection was there between wheat, flour, and cholera? What was the causal relation between the two? And how to reconcile them? The incident seemed to be inexplicable. I should write something on this and sing to my heart's content Baba's sweet Leelas. Thinking in this way about this Leela, my heart filled with joy, and I was thus inspired to write Baba's life, the Charitra. And as we know, with Baba's grace and blessings, this work was successfully accomplished. Philosophical significance of grinding. Apart from the meaning which the people of Shirdi put on this incident of grinding wheat, there is, we think, a philosophical significance too. Sai Baba lived in Shirdi for about 60 years, and during this long period, he did the business of grinding almost every day. Not, however, the wheat alone, but the sins, the mental and physical afflictions and miseries of his innumerable devotees. The 2 stones of his mill consist of karma and bhakti, the former being the lower and the latter the upper one. The handle with which Baba worked the mill consists of jnana. It was the firm conviction of Baba that knowledge or self-realization is not possible unless there is the prior act of grinding of all impulses, desires, sins, and of the 3 gunas, which are sattva, raja, and tamas, and the ahamkara, which is so subtle and therefore so difficult to be got rid of. This reminds us of a similar story of Kabir, who, seeing a woman grinding corn, said to his guru, Nipat Dinaranjan, I am weeping because I feel the agony of being crushed in this wheel of worldly existence. like the corn in the handmill. Nipati Ranjana replied, "Do not be afraid. Hold fast to the handle of knowledge of this mill, as I do, and do not wander far away from the same, but turn inward to the center, and you are sure to be saved." Bow to Sri Sai, peace be to all. Chapter 2. Object of writing the work, incapacity and boldness in the undertaking, hot discussion, conferring significant and prophetic title of Hemad Pan, necessary of a guru. In the last chapter, the author mentioned in the original Marathi book that he would state the reason that led him to undertake the work and about the persons qualified to read the same and such other points. Now, in this chapter, he starts to tell the same. Object of writing the work. In the first chapter, I described Sai Baba's miracle of checking and destroying the epidemic of cholera by grinding wheat and throwing the flour on the outskirts of the village. I heard other miracles of Sai Baba to my great delight, and this delight burst forth into this poetic work. I also thought that the description of these grand miracles of Sai Baba would be interesting and instructive to his devotees and would remove their sins. And so I began to write the sacrifice life and teachings of Sai Baba, sacred life. The life of the saint is neither logical nor dialectic. It shows us the true and great path. Incapacity and boldness in undertaking the work. Hemad Pant thought that he was not a fit person to undertake the work. He said, "When I do not know the life of my intimate friend, nor do I know my own mind, then how can I write the life of a saint or describe the nature of incarnations, which even the Vedas were unable to do? One must be a saint himself before he could know other saints. Otherwise, how can I describe their glory? To write the life of a saint is the most difficult, though one may as well measure the depth of the water of the seven seas or enclose the sky with cloth trappings. I knew that this was the most venturous undertaking which might expose me to ridicule. I therefore invoked Sai Baba's grace. The premier poet saint Maharashtra, Sri Jnaneshwar Maharaj, has stated that the Lord loves those who write the lives of saints. And the saints also have a peculiar method of their own of getting the service, which is the devotees long for, successfully accomplished. The saints inspire the work, the devotee becomes only an indirect cause or instrument to achieve the end. For instance, in 1700 Shaka year, the poet Mahipati aspired to write the lives of saints. Saints inspired him and got the work done. So also in 1800 Shaka year, Das Ganu's service was accepted. The former wrote 4 works, Bhakta Vijaya, Shanta Vijaya, Bhakta Leelamrit, and Shanta Leelamrit, while the latter wrote 2, Bhakta Leelamrit and Shanta Kathamrit, in which the lives of modern saints were described. In chapters 31, 32, 33 of Bhakta Leelamrit and in chapter 57 of Shanta Kathamrit, the sweet life and teachings of Sai Baba are very well depicted. These have been separately published in Sai Leela magazine, numbers 11 and 12, volume 17. The readers are advised to read these chapters. So also, Sai Baba's wonderful Leelas are described by Mrs. Savitri Bai Raghunath Tendulkar of Bandra in a small, decent book named Sri Sainath Bhajanamala. Das Ganu Maharaj also has composed various sweet poems on Sai Baba. A devotee named Amidas Bhavani Mehta has also published some stories of Sai Baba in Gujarati. Some numbers of Sainath Prabha, a magazine published by Dakshina Bhiksha Shansha of Shirdi, are also published. Then the question of objection comes in that while so many works regarding Sai Baba are extant, why should this Satcharita be written, and where is it necessary? The answer is plain and simple. The life of Sai Baba is as wide and deep as the infinite ocean, and all can dive deep into the same and take out precious gems of knowledge and bhakti and distribute to the aspiring public. The stories, parables, and teachings of Sai Baba are very wonderful. They will give peace and happiness to the people who are afflicted with sorrows and heavily loaded with miseries of the worldly existence, and also bestow knowledge and wisdom both in the worldly and in the spiritual domains. If these teachings of Sai Baba, which are as interesting and instructive as the Vedic lore, are listened to and meditated upon, the devotees will get what they long for, which are the union with Brahman, mastery in the Eightfold Yoga, bliss of meditation, etc. So I thought that I should call these stories together. That would be my best upasana. This collection would be most delightful to those simple souls whose eyes were not blessed with Sai Baba's darshana. So I set about collecting Sai Baba's teachings and expressions, the outcome of his boundless and natural self-realization. It was Sai Baba who inspired me in this manner. In fact, I surrendered my ego at his feet and thought that my path was clear and that he would make me quite happy here in the next world. I could not myself ask Sai Baba to give me permission for this work, so I requested Mr. Madhav Rao Deshpant, alias Shama, Baba's most intimate devotee, to speak to him for me. He pleaded for my cause and said to Sai Baba, "This Anna Sahib wishes to write your biography. Don't say that you're a poor beggar fakir and there is no necessity to write it. But if you agree and help him, he will write, or rather, your feet, grace will accomplish the work. Without your consent and blessing, nothing can be done successfully." When Sai Baba heard this request, he was moved and blessed me by giving me his udi, sacred ashes, and placed his boon bestowing hand on my head and said, "Let him make a collection of stories and experiences, keep notes and memos. I will help him. He is only an outward instrument. I should write myself, my autobiography, and satisfy the wishes of my devotees. He should get rid of his ego, place or surrender it at my feet. He who acts like this in his life, him I help the most. What of my life stories? I serve him in his house in all possible ways when his ego is completely annihilated and there is left no trace of it. I myself shall enter into him and shall myself write my own life. Hearing my stories and teachings will create faith in devotees' hearts, and they will easily get self-realization and bliss. Let there be no insistence on establishing one's own view, no attempt to refute others' opinions, no discussions of pros and cons of any subject. The word discussion put me in mind of my promise to explain the story of my getting the title of Hemadpant, and now I begin to relate the same. I was on close friendly terms with Kaka Sahib Dixit and Nana Sahib Chandorkar. They pressed me to go to Shirdi and have Baba's darshan, and I promised them to do so. But something in the interval turned up which prevented me from going to Shirdi. The son of a friend of mine at Lonavala fell ill. My friend tried all possible means, physical and spiritual, but the fever would not abate. At length, he got his guru to sit by the bedside of his son, but this too was of no avail. Hearing this, I thought, what was the utility of the guru if he could not save my friend's son? If the guru can't do anything for us, why should I go to Shirdi at all? Thinking in this way, I postponed my Shirdi trip. But the inevitable must happen, and it happened in my case as follows. Mr. Nana Sahib Chandrakar was who was a Pratt officer, was going on tour to Basin. From Tana, he came to Dadar and was waiting for a train bound for Basin. In the meanwhile, a Bandra local turned up. He sat in it and came to Bandra and sent for me and took me to task for putting off my Shirdi trip. Nana's argument for my Shirdi trip was convincing and delightful, and so I decided to start for Shirdi the same night. I packed up my luggage and started for Shirdi. I planned to go to Dadar and there to catch the train for Manmad, and so I booked myself for Dadar and sat in the train. While the train was to start, a Mohammedan came hastily to my compartment and, seeing all my paraphernalia, asked me where I was bound to. I told him my plan. He then suggested that I should straight go to Bori Bunder and not get down at Dadar, for the Manmad male did not get down at all, did not at Dadar at all. If this little miracle or Leela had not happened, I would not have reached Shirdi next day as settled, and many doubts would have assailed me. But that was not to be. As fortune favored me, I reached Shirdi the next day before 9 or 10 a.m. Mr. Bausaheb Kaka Dikshit was waiting for me there. This was in 1918 AD, when there was only one place, which was Shantavaras for lodging pilgrims, devotees. After alighting from the Tonka, I was anxious to have darshana when the great devotee Tatya Sab Nulkar returned from the masjid and said that Sai Baba was at the corner of the Wara and that I should first get the preliminary darshana and then after bath see him at leisure. Hearing this, I ran and prostrated before Baba, and then to my joy knew no bounds. I found more than what Nana Chandrakart had told me. All my senses were satisfied, and I forgot thirst and hunger. The moment I touched Sai Baba's feet, I began a new lease of life. I left myself much obliged to those who spurred and helped me to get the darshana, and I consider them as my real relatives, and I cannot repay their debt. I only remembered them and prostrate mentally before them. The peculiarity of Sai Baba's darshana, as I found it, is that by his darshana, our thoughts are changed. The force of previous actions is abated, and gradually non-attachment of dispassion towards worldly objects grows up. It is by the merit of actions in many past births that such darshana is got. And if only you see Sai Baba, really all the world becomes or assumes the form of Sai Baba. Hot discussion. On the first day of my arrival in Shirdi, there was a discussion between me and Bala Saheb Bhatt regarding the necessity of a guru. I contended, why should we lose our freedom and submit to others? When we have to do our duty, why a guru is necessary? One must try his best and save himself. What can the guru do to a man who does nothing but sleep indolently? Thus I pleaded free will, while Mr. Bhatt took up the other side, which was destiny, and said, whatever is bound to happen must happen. Even great men have failed. Man proposes one way, but God disposes the other, contrary way. Brush aside your cleverness, pride or egoism won't help you. This discussion, with all its pros and cons, went on for an hour or so, and as usual, no decision was arrived at. We had to stop the discussion ultimately as we were getting exhausted. The net result of this was that I lost my peace of mind and found that unless there is strong body consciousness and egoism, there would be no discussion. In other words, it is egoism which breeds discussion. Then when we went to the masjid with others, Baba asked Kaka Sahib Dixit the following: what was going on in the Sati's Wara? What was the discussion about? And staring at me, Baba further added, what did this Hamad Pad say? Hearing these words, I was much surprised. The masjid was at a considerable distance from Sateswara, where I was staying and where the discussion was going on. How could Baba know our discussion unless he is omniscient and the inner ruler of us all? Significant and prophetic title. I began to think why Sai Baba should call me by the name Hemadpant. This word is a distorted form of Hemadripant. This Hemadripant was a well-known minister of the kings Mahadev and Ramdev of Devagiri of the Yadav dynasty. He was very learned, good-natured, and the author of good works such as Chaturvarga Chintamani, dealing with spiritual subjects, and Raja Prashati. He invented and started new methods of accounts and was the originator of the Modi Maratha shorthand script. But I was quite the opposite, an ignoramus and of dull, mediocre intellect. So I could not understand why the name or title was conferred upon me. But thinking seriously upon it, I thought that the title was a dart to destroy my ego, so that I should always remain meek and humble. It was also a compliment paid to me for the cleverness in the discussion. Looking to the future history, we think that Baba's word, calling Mr. Dolkar by the name Hemadpant, was significant and prophetic, as we find that he looked after the management of Sai Sanstan very intelligently, kept nicely all the accounts, and was also the author of such good work, Sai Satcharita, which deals with such important and spiritual subjects as jnana, bhakti, and dispassion, self-surrender, and self-realization. About the necessity of a guru. Hemadpant has left no note, no memo about what Baba said regarding the subject, but Kaka Sahib Dixit has published his notes regarding this matter. Next day, after Hemadpant's meeting with Sai Baba, Kaka Sahib went to Baba and asked whether he should leave Shirdi. Baba said, yes. Then someone asked Baba where to go. Baba said, high up. Then the man said, how is the way? Baba said, there are many ways leading there. There is one way also from here, Shirdi. The way is difficult. There are tigers and wolves in the jungle on the way. Kekashab asked, but Baba, what if we take a guide with us? Baba answered, then there is no difficulty. The guide will take you straight to your destination, avoiding wolves, tigers, ditches, etc. on the way. If there be no guide, there is the danger of you being lost in the jungles or falling into ditches. Mr. Dabolkar was present on this occasion, and he thought that this was the answer Baba gave to the question whether Guru was a necessity. Read Sai Leela, Volume 1, Number 5, page 47. And he thereupon took the hint that no discussion of the problem whether man is free or bound is of any use in spiritual matters, but then on the contrary, real Paramatma is possible only as a result of the teachings of the Guru, as it illustrated in this chapter of the original work, in the instances of great avatars like Rama and Krishna, who had to submit themselves to their gurus, Vasishta and Sandipani, respectively, for getting self-realization, and that the only virtues necessary for such progress are faith and patience. Vide Sai Charitra, chapter 11, 191 to 92. Bow to Shirdi Sai, peace be to all. Chapter 3. Sai Baba's sanction and promise, assignment of work to devotees, Baba's stories as beacon light, his motherly love, Rohila stories, his sweet and nectar-like words. Sai Baba's sanction and promise. As described in the previous chapter, Sai Baba gave his complete assent to the writing of the Satcharitra and said, I fully agree with you regarding the writing of Satcharitra. You do your duty. Don't be afraid in the least. Steady your mind and have faith in my words. If my leelas are written, the avidya, essence, will vanish, and if they are attentive and devoutly listened to, the consciousness of the worldly existence will abate, and strong waves of devotion and love will rise up. And if one dives deep into my leelas, he would get precious jewels of knowledge. Hearing this, Arthur was much pleased, and he at once became fearless and confident and thought that the work was bound to be a success. Then turning to Shama, Mahadev Deshpande, Sai Baba said, if a man utters my name with love, I shall fulfill all his wishes, increase his devotion. And if he sings earnestly my life and my deeds, him I shall beset in front and back and on all sides. Those devotees who are attracted to me, heart and soul, will naturally feel happiness when they hear these stories. Believe me that if anybody sings my leelas, I will give him infinite joy and everlasting contentment. It is my special characteristic to free any person who surrenders completely to me and who does worship me faithfully and who remembers me and meditates on me constantly. How can they be conscious of worldly objects and sensations who utter my name, who worship me, who think of my stories and my life, and who thus always remember me? I shall draw out my devotees from the jaws of death. If my stories are listened to, all the diseases will be got rid of. So, hear my stories with respect and think and meditate on them, assimilate them. This is the way of happiness and contentment. The pride and egoism of my devotees will vanish. The mind of the hearers will be set at rest. And if it has wholehearted and complete faith, it will be the one with supreme consciousness. The simple remembrance of my name as Sai, will do away with sins of speech and hearing. Different works assigned to devotees. The Lord entrusts different work to different devotees. Some are given the work of building temples and mats or ghats, flights of steps on rivers. Some are made to sing the glories of God. Some are sent on pilgrimages. But to me was allotted the work of writing the Satcharita. Being a jack of all trades, but master of none, I was quite unqualified for this job. Then why should I undertake such a difficult job? Who can describe the true life of Sai Baba? Sai Baba's grace alone can enable one to accomplish this difficult work. So, when I took up the pen in my hand, Sai Baba took away my egoism and wrote himself his stories. The credit of relating these stories therefore goes to him and not to me. Though Brahmin my birth, I lacked the two eyes, the sight or vision of Shruti and Smriti, and therefore was not at all capable of writing the Sai Charitra. But the grace of the Lord makes a dumb man talk, enables a lame man to cross a mountain. He alone knows the knack of getting things done as he likes. Neither the flute nor the harmonium knows how the sounds are produced. This is the concern of the player. The oozing of Chandrakant jewel and the surging of the sea are not due to the jewel and the sea, but to the rise of the moon. Baba's stories as beacon light. Lighthouses are constructed at various places in the sea to enable the boatmen to avoid rocks and dangers and make them sail safely. Sai Baba's stories serve a similar purpose in the ocean of worldly existence. They surpass nectar in sweetness and make our worldly path smooth and easy to traverse. Blessed are the stories of the saints when they enter our hearts through the ears. The body consciousness or egoism and the sense of duality vanish. And when they are stored in the heart, doubts fly out to all sides. Pride of the body will fall, and wisdom will be stored in abundance. The description of Baba's pure fame and the hearing of the same with love will destroy the sins of the devotees, and therefore this is the simple sadhana for attaining salvation. The sadhana for Krita age was samadhana, tranquility of the mind and the body. For Treta age, sacrifice. For Dwapara, worship. And the Kali, present age, it is singing of the name and the glory of the Lord. This last sadhana is open to all the people of the four varnas, Brahmins, etc. The other sadhanas, which are yoga, yagya, sacrifice, and dhyana, meditation, and dharana, concentration, are very difficult to practice. But singing and hearing the stories and the glory of the Lord Sai Baba is very easy. We have only to turn our attention towards them. The listening and singing of the stories will remove the attachment to the senses and their objects, and will make the devotees dispassionate and will ultimately lead them to self-realization. With this end in view, Sai Baba made me or helped me to write his stories, Sai Chitramrita. The devotees may now easily read and hear these stories of Sai Baba, and while doing so, meditate on him, his form, and thus attain devotion to Guru and God, Sai Baba. Get detachment and self-realization. In the preparation and writing of this work, Sai Chitramrita, it is Sai Baba's grace which has accomplished everything, making use of me as a mere instrument. Motherly love of Sai Baba. Everybody knows how a cow loves her infant calf. Her udder is always full when the calf wants milk and dashes at the udder. Out comes the milk in an unceasing flow. Similarly, a human mother knows the wants of her child beforehand and feeds it at her breast in time. In case of dressing and adorning the child, the mother takes particular care to see that this is well done. The child knows or cares nothing about this, but the mother's joy knows no bounds when she sees her child beautifully dressed and adorned. The love of mother is peculiar, extraordinary, and disinterested, and has no parallel. Sadgurus feel this motherly love towards their disciples. Sai Baba had the same love towards me, and I give an instance of it below. In 1980, I retired from government service. The pension that was settled in my case was not sufficient to maintain my family decently. On Guru Purnima, 15th of Ashada day of that year, I went to Shirdi with other devotees. There, Mr. Anna Chinchainkar, of his own account, prayed to Baba for me as follows. Please look kindly on him. The pension he gets is quite insufficient. His family is growing. Give him some other appointment. Remove his anxiety and make him happy. Baba replied, he will get some other job, but now he should serve me and be happy. His dishes will be ever full and never empty. He should turn all his attention towards me and avoid the company of atheists, irreligious, and wicked people. He should be meek and humble towards all the worship me heart and soul. If he does this, he will get eternal happiness. The question, who is this he, whose worship is advocated, is already answered in a note on who is Sai Baba in the prologue at the beginning of this work. Rohila story. The story of the Rohila illustrates Sai Baba's all-embracing love. One Rohila, tall and well-built, strong as a bull, came to Shirdi, wearing a long kafni robe, and was enamored of Sai, who stayed there. Day and night he used to recite in a loud, harsh tone Kalma verses from the Holy Quran and shout, Allahu Akbar, God is great. Most people of Shirdi were working in the fields by day, and when they returned to their homes at night, they were welcomed with the Rohila's harsh cries and shouts. They could get no sleep and felt much trouble and inconvenience. They suffered in silence this nuisance for some days, and when they could stand it no longer, they approached Baba. and requested him to check the Rohilla and stop the nuisance. Baba did not attend to their complaint. On the contrary, Baba took the villagers to task and asked them to mind their own business and not the Rohilla. He said to them that the Rohilla had got a very bad wife, a Zandipi, who tried to come in and trouble the Rohilla and himself. But hearing the Rohilla's prayers, she dared not enter, and they were at peace and happy. In fact, the Rohilla had no wife, and by his wife, Baba meant dur buddhi, i.e., bad thoughts. As Baba liked prayers and cries to God better than anything else, he took the side of the Rohilla and asked the villagers to wait and suffer the nuisance, which would abate in due course. Baba's sweet and nectar-like words. One day at noon, after the Aarti, devotees were returning to their lodgings when Baba gave the following beautiful advice. Be wherever you like, do whatever you choose. Remember this well, and all what you do is known to me. I am the inner ruler of all and seated in their hearts. I envelope all the creatures, the movable and immovable world. I am the controller, the wire puller of the show of this universe. I am the mother, origin of all beings, the harmony of three gunas, the propeller of all senses, the creator, preserver, and destroyer. Nothing will harm him who turns his attention towards me, but Maya will lash or whip him who forgets me. All the insects, ants, the visible, movable, and immovable world is my body or form. Hearing these beautiful words and precious words, I at once decided in my mind to serve no man henceforth but my Guru only. But the reply of Baba to Anna Chinchaka's query, which was really mine, that I would get some job, began to revolve in my mind, and I began to think whether it would come to happen. As future events showed, Baba's words came true, and I got a government job, but that was of short duration. Then I became free and solely devoted myself to the service of my Guru, Sai Baba. Before concluding this chapter, I request the readers to leave out the various hindrances, which are indolence, sleep, wandering of mind, attachment to senses, etc., and turn their whole and undivided attention to these stories of Sai Baba. Let their love be of natural. Let them know the secret of devotion. Let them not exhaust themselves by other sadhanas. Let them stick to this one simple remedy, i.e., listening to Sai Baba's stories. This will destroy their ignorance and will secure for them salvation. A miser may stay at various places, but he always thinks of his buried treasure. So let Sai Baba be enthroned in the hearts of all. In the next chapter, I shall speak of Sai Baba's advent in Shirdi. Bow to Sri Sai, peace be to all. Chapter 4, Sai Baba's first advent in Shirdi. Mission of the Saints, Shirdi, a holy truth, personality of Sai Baba, dictum of Gauli Buva, appearance of Vittal, Sri Ragsar's story, Das Ganu's bath in Prayag, Immaculate Conception of Sai Baba and his first advent in Shirdi, three Vadas. In this chapter, I describe the circumstances which led me to write Sai Satcharita. Let me now describe the first advent of Sai Baba in Shirdi. Mission of the Saints. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavata, chapter 4, 7-8, that wherever there is a decay of dharma, righteousness, and an ascendancy of unrighteousness, I manifest myself. And for the prosecution of the virtuous, the destruction of the vicious, and for the establishment of the righteousness, I manifest myself in age after age. This is the mission of the Lord and the sages and saints, who are his representatives, and who appear here at proper times, help in their own way to fulfill that mission. For instance, when the twice born, i.e., the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, and the Vaishyas, neglect their duties, and when the Shudras try to usurp the rights of the higher classes, when spiritual preceptors are not respected but humiliated, when nobody cares for religious instructions, when everybody thinks himself very learned, when people begin to partake of forbidden foods and intoxicating drinks, when under the cloak of religion people indulge in malpractices, when people belonging to different sects fight amongst themselves, when Brahmins fail to do Sandhya adoration, and the Orthodox their religious practices, when yogis neglect their meditation, when people begin to think that wealth, progeny, wife are their sole concern, and thus turn away from the true spiritual path of salvation, then do saints appear and try to set matters right by their words and action. They serve us as beacon lights and show us the right path and the right way for us to follow. In this way, many saints, which are Nivritti, Nyandev, Mukatabai, Namdev, Gora, Gonayi, Eknath, Tukaram, Narahari, Nasribai, Sajan Kasai, Savata, Ramdas, and various others did appear at various times to show the right path to the people, and so presently came Shirdi Sai Baba of Shirdi. Shirdi, a holy tribe. The banks of Godavari River in the Ahmednagar district are very fortunate, for they gave birth and refuge to many a saint, prominent amongst them being Jnaneshwar. Shirdi also falls in the Kopargaon taluka of the Ahmednagar district. After crossing the Godavari River at Kopargaon, one gets the way to Shirdi. When you go to 3 coast 9 miles, you come to Nimgan, from where Shirdi is visible. Shirdi is as famous and well known as other holy places like Gangapur, Narishwadi, Adumbar, and the banks of Krishna River. As the devotee Damaji flourished in and blessed Mangalaveda near Pandharpur, as Samarth Ramdas as Sajad, and Sri Narasingha Saraswati at Saraswati Vata. So Sainath flourished at Shirdi and blessed it. Personality of Sai Baba. It is on account of Sai Baba that Shirdi grew into importance. Let us see what sort of a personage Sai Baba was. He conquered the samsara, worldly existence, which is very difficult and hard to cross. Peace or mental calm was his ornament, and he was the repository of wisdom. He was the home of Vaishnava devotees, most liberal, like Karna, amongst liberals, the quintessence of all essences. He had no love for perishable things and was always engrossed in self-realization, which was his sole concern. He felt no pleasure in the things of this world or of the world beyond. His antarang heart was as clear as a mirror, and his speech always rained nectar. The rich or poor people were the same to him. He neither knew nor cared for honor or dishonor. He was the Lord of all beings. He spoke freely and mixed with all people, saw the actings and dances of Natak girls, and heard Gajal songs. Still, he swerved not an inch from samadhi, mental equilibrium. The name of Allah was always on his lips. While the world awoke, he slept. And while the world slept, he was vigilant. His abandonment inside and was as calm and as deep sea. His ashram could not be determined, nor his actions could be definitely determined. And though he lived in one place, he knew all the transactions of the world. His darbar was imposing. He told daily hundreds of stories. Still, he swerved not an inch from his vow of silence. He always leaned against the wall in the masjid or walked mornings, noon, and evenings towards Lendi, Nala, and Chavadi. Still, he at all times abided in the self. Though a Siddha, he acted like a sadhaka. He was meek, humble, and egoless, and pleased all. Such was Sai Baba, and as the soil of Shirdi was trodden by Sai Baba's feet, it attained extraordinary importance. As Jnaneswar elevated Alandi, Ekanath did to Paitam, so Sai Baba raised Shirdi. Blessed are the grass, leaves, and stones of Shirdi, for they could easily kiss the holy feet of Sai Baba and take their dust on their heads. Shirdi became to us devotees another Pandharpur, Jagannath, Dwaraka, Banaras, Kashi, and Rameshwar, Badrikeshwar, Nasik, Triambekeshwar, Ujjain, and Mahakaleshwar, or Mahabaleshwar Gokan. Contact of Shirdi Baba and Shirdi was like our study of Veda and Tantra. It quietened a samsara world consciousness and rendered self-realization easy. The darshana of Shirdi Sai was our yoga sadhana, and talk with him removed our sins. Shampooing his legs was our bath in Triveni Prayag, and drinking the holy water of his feet destroyed our desires. To us, his commands were Vedas, and accepting eating his Udi, sacred ashes, and prasad was all purifying. He was our Sri Krishna and Sri Rama, who gave us solace, and he was our Para Brahma, absolute reality. He was himself beyond the pair of dvandvas, opposites, never dejected nor elated. He was always engrossed in his self as existence, knowledge, and bliss. Shirdi was his center, but his field of action extended far wide to Punjab, Calcutta, North India, Gujarat, Dhaka, now in Bangladesh, and Konkan. Thus the fame of Sai Baba spread far and wide, and people from all parts came to take his darshana and be blessed. By mere darshana, minds of people, whether pure or impure, would become at once quiet. They got here the same sort of unparalleled joy that devotees get at Pandharpur by seeing Vittal Rukmani. This is not an exaggeration. Consider what a devotee says in this respect. Dictum of Gaulibwa. An old devotee by name Gaulibwa, aged about 95 years, was the Varkari of Pandari. He stayed 8 months in Pandharpur and 4 months, Ashada to Kartik, July to November, on the banks of the Ganges. He had an ass with him for carrying his luggage, and a disciple and his companion. Disciple as his companion. Every year he made his vari or trip to Pandharpur and came to Shirdi to see Sai Baba, whom he loved most. He used to stare at Sai Baba and say, "This is Pandarinath, Vittal incarnate, the merciful Lord of the poor and helpless." This Gaulibya was an old devotee of Vittoba and had made many trips to Pandari. And he testified that Sai Baba was real Pandarinath.
Sarah, I'm going to take a pause here. It is very, very 9:30. We just have the closing prayers. Sai Shwaraya Vidmahe Satyadevaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat. Sai Shwaraya Vidmahe Satyadevaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat. साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। शांति शांति शांति। समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु। समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु। समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु। Om Shri Sai. Thank you, Auntie Renu, for beautifully walking us through the chapters today.
Yeah.
So, see you all tomorrow at 8:30.